Have you ever wondered why you keep returning to this world, again and again, as if something invisible were pulling you back? Why every time you think you've found peace, you are drawn once more into pain, desire, and confusion? What if your return to Earth wasn't a divine blessing, but the result of an ancient contract you don't remember signing? The Gnostics spoke of a powerful being, the Demiurge, the false god who built the material world as a prison for souls. But within their secret writings, there is a lesser-known truth. The soul didn't just fall by accident. It agreed to come back. Somewhere, in the shadow between lives, an exchange was made, a forgotten pact binding us to the cycle of birth and death. Most people believe reincarnation is part of a loving divine plan, a path of growth guided by karma and forgiveness. But what if the truth is darker? What if the system itself is a trap disguised as mercy, a spiritual contract that keeps the divine spark enslaved to matter, lifetime after lifetime? In this video, we will uncover what the ancient Gnostics truly meant when they spoke of the contract of return. We'll explore how this hidden agreement was sealed, who benefits from it, and what it truly costs to be born again. And by the end, you may begin to question not only who created this world, but why your soul keeps being called back to it. If you're ready to awaken from the illusion, to remember what your spirit once knew before descending into flesh, make sure to subscribe and join us in uncovering these hidden revelations. Because what we're about to explore might completely change the way you see life, death, and the very idea of salvation. According to the ancient Gnostics, the soul did not fall into this world by mistake. It was summoned, called down from the pleroma, the realm of divine fullness, into the dense reality ruled by the Demiurge. In the texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, such as the Apocryphon of John and the Hypostasis of the Archons, we find a mysterious thread. The soul's descent was not simply an act of rebellion, but an act of deception. Something or someone tricked the divine essence into entering a false creation. Imagine a luminous being, pure consciousness, descending into layers of matter, each layer denser than the last, until the light begins to forget its own origin. The Gnostics said that before entering this realm, the soul was confronted by the Archons, the rulers of the lower spheres, agents of the Demiurge. These beings required something from every soul, an agreement. It was not written on paper, but imprinted in vibration, an energetic consent sealed through ignorance. When the soul accepted to learn through experience, it unknowingly accepted the terms of the false god. The contract was disguised as a lesson, but it was actually a chain. In Gnostic vision, the Demiurge promised growth through matter, but in truth, he was feeding off the light trapped within bodies. Each reincarnation was a renewal of this cosmic pact, the price of returning to Earth. Over time, organized religion reinterpreted this descent as divine will. The Church told us that being born is a gift, that this world was made for our salvation. Yet the Gnostics whispered another truth. The material world is a factory of forgetfulness. Every lifetime, every rebirth, is another signature on that same invisible contract. Do you see how powerful this idea is? It means that what we call life could actually be the debt we owe to a false creator. Some scholars believe this contract was symbolized by the veil of forgetfulness described in esoteric traditions. When the soul crosses from the spiritual plane to the physical, it must drink from the cup of Lethe, the water of oblivion. That act of forgetting is the final signature, the moment the divine spark agrees to play the human game once more. But here's the question the Gnostics dared to ask. Who profits from this game? And what happens when a soul decides not to renew its contract, when it remembers who it truly is? In the next block, we'll explore how ancient texts reveal the mechanisms behind this deception, how the Demiurge and his Archons designed reincarnation as a system of energetic control. You'll see why this contract was never meant to be broken, and why awakening might be the only way out. To the Gnostics, the universe ruled by the Demiurge was not a harmonious creation. It was a simulation of divinity, a counterfeit cosmos. They said that this false creator, ignorant of the true source, built his world as a mirror image of the divine realms, but one stripped of love and consciousness. And within this artificial world, he required a constant source of energy to sustain his illusion. That energy came from us, from the divine sparks imprisoned in human form. Each soul, descending from the pleroma, carried within it a fragment of the true light. But once inside the physical body, the soul became entangled in desires, fears, and memories that bind it to matter. The archons, those invisible rulers beneath the Demiurge, maintained this state of confusion. They whispered through systems of belief, through emotional pain, through the cycles of suffering that make humans seek comfort in the very world that traps them. In this way, reincarnation became the perfect engine for control. Every death was not an escape, but a renewal of the trap. Ancient texts describe this process symbolically. In the Pistis Sophia, the soul after death meets the toll collector's cosmic gatekeepers, demanding payment before passage. Each gate represents a layer of purification, but also interrogation. The unawakened soul, full of fear and attachment, fails the test and is sent back reborn again into flesh, carrying the same chains under a new name. It believes it has free will, yet its choices are limited to what the system allows. The Demiurge does not need to chase us. We willingly return to his world because our own ignorance binds us here. Modern researchers draw parallels between these ancient ideas and psychological conditioning. What if the archons were not literal monsters, but archetypal forces, fear, guilt, ambition, that drain our spiritual energy? Each time we give in to them, we feed the same machine, and so life becomes a marketplace of illusions. We sell our divine energy in exchange for fleeting pleasures and temporary identities. The Gnostics taught that true liberation comes when the soul remembers that it does not belong here. Salvation is not earned by obedience or ritual. It is awakened by knowledge, by gnosis. To know is to see the strings that move the puppet, and once you see them, they lose their power. That's why this revelation was feared, even suppressed. A soul that remembers the contract, that understands how it was deceived, can no longer be easily recycled through the wheel of birth and death. But if this system is so powerful, how did it begin? What caused the Demiurge to build this false world in the first place? In the next block, we will uncover the Gnostic story of how the contract was created, the rebellion of Sophia, the birth of the Demiurge, and the first trap ever set for the human soul. Long before humanity walked the earth, the Gnostics believed there was a realm of pure light and consciousness known as the pleroma, the fullness of the divine. From this infinite source emanated countless beings of light, called eons, each expressing an aspect of the unknowable God. Among them was Sophia, the embodiment of divine wisdom. But in her longing to know the invisible spirit directly, to create without her divine counterpart, she gave birth to something that was not fully light. That being was the Demiurge. Unlike the other eons, the Demiurge was born outside the harmony of the pleroma. Ignorant of the higher realms, he believed himself to be the only God. The Apocryphon of John records his proclamation, "I am God, and there is no other beside me." That arrogance was the first distortion, the first illusion. From it, the material cosmos began to form. The Demiurge, unable to access the true divine energy, imitated creation. He shaped matter out of chaos and breathed into it a stolen spark of light, fragments of Sophia herself. Those sparks became souls. Here lies the origin of the cosmic contract. Sophia, realizing her mistake, tried to awaken her lost fragments. But the Demiurge, fearing the return of the light to its source, built layers of barriers, the heavens ruled by archons. Each archon was assigned to guard one level of the cosmos, ensuring that souls remained ignorant of their origin. In this prison of spheres, every birth and death became part of a vast accounting system. Energy in, energy out. The contract was the metaphysical law the Demiurge established, that any spark entering his eyes, creation must obey the rules of his world. Time, suffering, and rebirth. To the unawakened, this law feels natural. We are born, we die, we return. But to the Gnostics, this was a form of cosmic slavery. The Demiurge had twisted Sophia's light into the illusion of life and convinced souls that their suffering was growth. Some Gnostic writings say Sophia's tears fell into the lower worlds, becoming the substance of human compassion, the only force that could remind us of the truth. Compassion and awareness were fragments of her call, echoing through our longing for something more than this world can offer. Over centuries, traditional religions reinterpreted this myth, concealing its meaning under the language of obedience and sin. You were born to serve God, they said, but they never asked which God. The Gnostics insisted that the creator of matter was not the ultimate God of light. He was the architect of the illusion. And by convincing souls that birth was divine and death was the only escape, he maintained absolute control. But if Sophia's spark still lives within us, could that mean the contract can be broken? Could a soul remember its origin so completely that the Demiurge's claim loses its power? In the next block, we'll explore the ancient keys of liberation, the symbols and knowledge hidden in Gnostic texts that reveal how the soul can awaken and void the contract of return. The Gnostics believed that salvation could not be given from outside. It had to be remembered from within. The soul already possessed the divine spark, but it was buried under layers of ignorance, fear, and false belief. To free it, one needed gnosis, the secret knowledge that reveals what we truly are and exposes the deception of the Demiurge. This gnosis was not intellectual, it was experiential. It awakened the soul like a sudden flash of lightning, the moment it realized, I was never truly part of this world. In their secret communities, early Gnostics practiced sacred rituals that mirrored the soul's return to the higher realms. They spoke of ascending through the spheres, confronting the archons that guarded each level of the cosmos. Each archon represented an inner obstacle: pride, lust, fear, envy, forces that chained the divine spark to matter. When a seeker learned to see these not as sins, but as programs imposed by the Demiurge's system, the illusion began to break. The Gnostic did not fight the archons through violence, but through recognition. By naming them and understanding their origin, their power dissolved. Texts like the books of Ge and the Pistis Sophia describe a mysterious formula, a series of passwords and names of light. These were not literal words, but vibrational codes, symbolic keys representing higher states of consciousness. When the soul recited them during meditation or visionary ascent, it declared its awareness: I am not yours. I come from the realms of light. The Gnostics believed that this declaration could shatter the invisible contract, freeing the soul from automatic reincarnation. It's no wonder this knowledge was forbidden. To rulers and priests, a liberated soul was a dangerous soul, a person who no longer feared death, who no longer believed salvation came from obedience, could not be controlled. That's why so many Gnostic sects were erased from history, their texts burned, their teachers labeled heretics. Yet their message survived, hidden in symbols, myths, and parables, waiting for those ready to see beyond the veil. Think about this. How many times have you felt that something in this world is profoundly off? That no matter how much you achieve, an emptiness remains, as if a deeper truth is calling you back? The Gnostics would say that's Sophia's whisper inside your own soul. It's the memory of the realm beyond matter, reminding you that the real home is not here. But awakening is not just remembering. It's a transformation of perception. When the soul awakens, the world does not vanish, but its power to deceive fades. The contract loses its hold because you no longer identify as the one who signed it. You realize that the true you never belonged to this realm at all. In the next block, we will explore how this ancient awakening connects to modern life, how the same archons that once ruled the heavens now operate through systems of control on Earth. You'll see how ancient Gnostic warnings are not just myth, but a mirror of our current reality. To the ancient Gnostics, the archons were not simply demonic creatures floating between stars. They were forces, invisible patterns of domination. They feed on ignorance and fear. They were the invisible architects of the illusion, working through emotion, belief, and hierarchy. When we read their texts today, we might imagine strange cosmic rulers in other realms. But the true brilliance of the Gnostic vision lies in its timelessness. Because even now, thousands of years later, their system of control still exists. Only its forms have changed. The archons no longer appear as mythic entities. They manifest through the systems we obey without question. Political ideologies, economic dependence, mass entertainment, and even certain religious doctrines all can act as extensions of the same energetic web. They whisper the same command: forget who you are. They make you define yourself by possessions, by roles, by opinions. They make you chase meaning in things that decay. Every time you trade your inner stillness for anxiety or comparison, every time you fear judgment more than truth, you feed the same structure the Gnostics once warned about. Imagine this. In ancient times, souls were told they had to pass through 7 planetary rulers before reaching the divine realm. Today, we pass through 7 screens, 7 distractions, 7 forms of noise before we can hear our own thoughts. The names have changed, but the function is the same: to keep consciousness occupied, looping endlessly inside the material dream. The archons are masters of repetition. That's why reincarnation was their ultimate masterpiece, the infinite replay of experience without remembrance. Psychologically, these forces can be understood as archetypes of fear and control, internalized systems that condition our behavior. But in mystical terms, they are living currents of deception, maintained by collective belief. As long as humanity agrees that matter is all there is, the Demiurge remains king. As long as we believe suffering is natural, the contract stands. The modern world, with its obsession for productivity, consumption, and distraction, functions like a temple to the Demiurge. It keeps souls focused downward, toward survival, not awakening. But this revelation isn't meant to create despair. The Gnostics did not teach hopelessness. They taught lucidity. They said that once you see the mechanism, it begins to lose power. The archons thrive only in unconsciousness. When you begin to observe your thoughts, to detach from impulses and desires imposed by the world, you weaken their hold. The simple act of remembering that you are more than your body, more than your history, that alone begins to dissolve the invisible chains. Some Gnostic texts even suggested that the moment of death could be an opportunity for liberation. If the soul recognizes the archons and refuses to answer their false questions, it passes freely into the higher light. This teaching wasn't about literal beings guarding heaven, but about transcending the illusions of identity, guilt, and fear that bind the human mind. To the Gnostics, the afterlife was simply a reflection of our inner state, and that means the key to freedom is already within us, in awareness, in remembrance. Think of the world around you. How many live on autopilot, driven by programs they never chose? How many are reborn into the same pain, the same patterns, the same unhealed wounds, lifetime after lifetime? If the Demiurge's contract still binds humanity, then the true revolution is not political or technological. It's spiritual. The awakening of even one soul ripples through the whole field, cracking the illusion from within. In the next block, we will explore the price of awakening, what it costs to break the contract. Because freedom, in the Gnostic view, always comes with sacrifice, the loss of everything that once felt real. The question is, are we ready to pay that price? To break the Demiurge's contract is not an act of rebellion in the usual sense. It is an act of remembrance, so profound that it unravels the illusion of identity itself. The Gnostics knew this was not easy. They said that awakening always comes with a cost, and that cost is the world you thought was real. The moment the soul begins to awaken, everything built on illusion begins to collapse. Attachments, ambitions, even relationships that depended on the old way of seeing. The false self resists because its survival depends on forgetting. The Gnostic masters compared this process to dying before death. In their view, One must symbolically die to the material dream before the body dies, so that the soul is no longer bound by the laws of the Demiurge. This inner death means surrendering every label: man, woman, success, failure, sinner, saint, and remembering that none of these identities truly belong to the divine spark. The world teaches us to seek security in form, but Gnosis demands that we walk into the unknown, naked of all illusions. That is the price of liberation. This is why so few are willing to pay it. To awaken is to feel the loneliness of truth, the silence after the noise of the world fades. It is to see the puppeteers behind the stage and realize that most people would rather continue the play. The Gnostics described this loneliness as the sorrow of Sophia, the pain of remembering the light while still walking among the blind. Yet they also said that from this sorrow blooms compassion, the power that reconnects the awakened soul to all others still dreaming. Compassion becomes the bridge between worlds. The awakened one remains in the world, not as a prisoner, but as a messenger of the forgotten home. But the archons do not let go easily. The moment a soul begins to awaken, forces rise to pull it back: fear, distraction, temptation. The system fights to make you doubt your own light. It whispers, "You need more. You are not ready. You are alone." The Gnostics warned that these voices are the last defense of the Demiurge. If you resist them, not by fighting, but by observing, they fade. The contract unravels because it depended on your ignorance, on your belief that you are powerless. In modern terms, breaking the contract means ceasing to identify with the endless cycle of desire and disappointment that rules society. It means remembering that no external force owns your consciousness. It means waking up in the middle of the dream and realizing that the dreamer can choose to stop dreaming. This act does not destroy the world. It transforms your relationship to it. The awakened one sees the same sun, the same faces, the same suffering, but perceives through the lens of eternity. Nothing external has changed, yet everything has. And so, the price of awakening is the death of illusion. But what comes after that death is freedom, an unshakable peace born from knowing that you are never truly bound. The Gnostics called this the return to the pleroma, the homecoming of light to light. No more contracts, no more reincarnation, no more forgetting. Only remembrance, only being. Yet even this is not the end. For once you awaken, another question arises. What will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep it hidden or share it to awaken others still trapped in the wheel? In the final block, we'll explore how this eternal search continues and why your participation, your voice, your reflection are essential to keeping the light alive in this world of shadows. So now you know the contract was never written on stone or paper. It was written in forgetfulness. Every time we look at the sky and call this prison heaven, every time we mistake pleasure for freedom, every time we believe the world owes us meaning, we sign it again. But the moment we remember, the moment we question, the illusion begins to tear. And that simple act of awareness of daring to see is how the soul begins to leave the cycle behind. The Gnostics never offered easy comfort. They offered vision. They said the divine spark inside you has been asleep for ages, repeating lives, memories, and names that are not your own. But now, perhaps, you are beginning to awaken to feel that deep stirring that says, "I've been here before." That recognition is the light of Sophia moving within you, guiding you back to what you truly are, a being of infinite origin, trapped only by the belief that you are small. Breaking the contract with the Demiurge is not a dramatic event. It happens silently, in the stillness of your own mind. It's when you stop obeying fear, when you no longer believe that suffering is holy or that ignorance is peace. It's when you begin to look at this world and realize it was never meant to define you. It was meant to test you. The moment you see that clearly, the system loses power. You become a free soul, a traveler through worlds, carrying memory instead of debt. But freedom is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of responsibility. Because once you awaken, you hold a light that others still cannot see. The Gnostics taught that sharing truth is not preaching, it is remembering together. Every comment, every reflection, every conversation among seekers adds a spark to the invisible fire that weakens the false light of the Demiurge. That is why your voice matters here. This is not just a channel, it is a gathering of souls who remember that something vast and divine is hidden behind the veil of this world. So, if these words resonated with something deep inside you, something you cannot explain but feel burning quietly, don't let it fade. Keep searching. Keep questioning. Share your thoughts below and tell us. What do you think this forgotten contract means? Have you ever felt that strange déjà vu, as if this life were just one chapter in an endless story? Your reflection might be the sign someone else needs to awaken. And if you wish to continue uncovering the secrets that were buried by time, subscribe, like, and join our community of seekers of hidden truth. Every small action you take here helps keep the memory of Gnosis alive against the great tide of forgetfulness, because the search does not end here. The veil may close again, the dream may try to reclaim you, but once you have seen the light behind the illusion, you can never truly return to sleep. The real journey has just begun back to the source, back to the pleroma, back to the remembrance of who you were before you agreed to come here.